Hello and welcome to the Merino Custom Works channel. Today we will be following up on our previous part 1 video where we added mortar to the peak of this roof. Here in part 2 we'll cover the final 3 steps to complete the tile roof renovation. First we'll pressure wash the entire roof and I'll share some tips for getting the roof clean and without damage. Next we'll seal any large gaps in the tile and if applicable any penetrations in the roof from bolts or installations. And lastly, we will coat the roof with an elastic fiber paint. There are a few versions of this final step and I'll share each of them with you. So our first task is to pressure wash the roof. I'm using a gas-powered pressure washer that I shipped over from the US, but it doesn't really matter what type you have. What does matter is the nozzle. I'm using a rotating nozzle, which I prefer for this job. Here at the peak of the roof, I'm trying to not hit the mortar that we just put on last week. So I'm just getting the face of the tiles. Note that I'm keeping the sprayer nozzle angled downward as to not get too much water underneath the tiles. You could cause a leak if you get that nozzle pointed upward underneath the tiles. And if you don't have a secondary backup to your roof, then you're going to get water in the house. Notice there that I also just briefly touched the edge of the tiles because you do have to hit that at a perpendicular angle. I'm keeping my right foot straddled across 2 tiles in the middle of the tile. I don't have much weight on my front foot and I'm trying not to keep my front foot on the edge of the tiles or on that top row of tiles. On the top row of tiles, if you crack one of those, it's very difficult to replace and you usually end up having to repair it. I'm working in sections from top to bottom and then I'll go to the next section and work from top to bottom. Now let's talk about sealing large gaps and installations that penetrate the roof tiles. These are potential leaks over time. For the gaps caused by tiles installed on uneven roofs, wind and heavy rain can push water back up and underneath the tiles, causing a leak. Installations on a roof may have old sealant or seals that will need to be renewed. These particular interlocking concrete tiles rely heavily on a tight fit to be water resistant in gusty rainstorms. Unfortunately, water can easily run back up and behind the tiles because there's no horizontal ridge to stop the water and redirect it. For this reason, I'm looking for large gaps and sealing them with silicone, especially near the peak of the roof where the winds are heavier. As you can see here, I've sealed a few gapped areas where the roof had leaks prior. Next, I'm looking to seal penetrations through the roof. This particular roof has bolted tiles on the bottom edge. Some of the seals for the bolts are non-existent, so I'm going to add silicone around each one. You may have other types of penetrations to seal, such as solar panels, satellite cables, skylights, etc. We're going to use a paintable silicone or polyurethane to seal these points. It doesn't matter what type of sealant it is, as long as it's made specifically for roof tile and it's paintable. I'm applying a liberal amount with the caulk gun, and then I'll use my finger or glove to smear the silicone into the gaps and get a good seal with these textured tiles. Lastly, we'll talk about coating the roof with an elastic fiber paint. As I previously mentioned, there are a few different variations of the application. You'll want to cover the mortar at the very least. The coating will help the mortar from cracking and eroding over time, keeping your roof leak-free. If the fiber paint matches the tile color closely and you have no other issues with the roof, just coat the mortar. If you want a little more protection, coat the peak tiles and the edge tiles or the rake after filling with mortar. I also like to coat the edge of the rake tiles, which helps seal the cracks between the tile and the wall of the house. Here I'm coating the entire roof because the cement tiles are starting to deteriorate and the fiber paint will stop the erosion and help to seal smaller gaps in the field. I'm using a combination of a roller and a brush throughout the process. The fiber paint dries quickly in the hot sun and will eventually ruin both, so I recommend going cheap on these tools. If you don't finish in one day, it's best to seal them in plastic bags until you're ready for the next round. After the job, they'll be ready to throw away. I'm working with the roller in sections that it will fit, then I'll clean it up with the brush afterward. I'm applying one thick coat to the roof and virtually mopping it on. I'll work in sections from the peak to the bottom of the roof so that I have enough room to get those last 2 rows of tile. It's best to choose a completely dry day with no chance of rain. If the paint does not have 4 hours or so to set up in the sun before rain, it will wash off and create a mess. Let the roof dry and harden for a couple of days before walking on it. And that's it. The roof is now sealed and should last for several more years. I hope this video was helpful. Please leave a comment if you would like some more details on something, and make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and just for fun in Portuguese, vamos falando.